It's Monday, November 8th, coming up live on The View. They're the hot topics everyone wants in on, from why President Obama said it was important to appear on The View, to Meghan McCain blasting Bristol for not voting, and the mom who's taking heat for letting her boy dress as a girl for Halloween. Plus, Natalie Cole sharing how her drug addiction almost killed her 25 years after she quit, and the sudden tragedy that hit her just as she was triumphing over her illness. And forget everything you've seen in the headlines, because the man who exposed the first late-night war between Dave and Jay is blowing the lid off what really went down between Jay and Conan during late night's World War II. All that, hot topics and more, coming up live on The View.
To The View. Happy Monday, y'all.
Thank you. How are you?
I'm very well. How about yourself?
I'm fine.
Y'all look very like,
I'm feeling a little Vegas-y, Demi. Quando.
Very excited.
I'm toning it all down.
You've toned yourself all down?
I'm in basic black.
Basic black, except for the beautiful, it's not called salmon. What is that color called? Salmon.
Whatever.
It's beautiful. It's like coral. Anyway, President Obama sat down for an interview with 60 Minutes last night. Anybody catch it?
Yes. So yes, I did. Say a little bit about it.
Right. So you caught
because it was, I caught it. Because we were on. Yes, The View was on. And it was a question that a lot of people have asked us after President Obama was on with us this past, was it July? End of July, was it not?
End of July.
And Steve Croft asked this question of the president, and we'll show you what he said, and then we'll tell you how we feel, okay?
It seems like he has been almost everywhere. Leno and Letterman, MTV.
Good to see you as well.
BET.
Thank you so much.
Comedy Central.
Thank you for your time.
America's Most Wanted, and The View.
Have you ever watched us?
Of course. Well, this is the second time I've been on now.
Some find it demeaning and unpresidential.
It used to be a president could call a press conference and the three major networks would come and he'd talk to them. And you pretty much reached everybody in America. There are a whole bunch of folks who watch The Daily Show or watch The View. So I've got to adapt the presidency to reach as many people as possible in as many settings as possible. You know, on the one hand, folks say, well, you know, he's a little too remote. Then if I'm on The View, well, you know, he shouldn't be, you know, on some daytime TV show. My attitude is, if I'm reaching people, if I'm talking to them, I'm willing to take the risks of overexposure on that front.
I'd like to say something else about this, because there are some political people, not all, who don't want to come on The View because they think that we are too controversial, or we may say something they don't like. And so I give the president high marks just for coming on. Don't we have Newt Gingrich on this week?
Yes.
As a matter of fact, But there are some, you know, who won't because it's
during the election. Most did come during the election.
Well, we still have some who tomorrow is Newt Gingrich. I won't be here. I'd like him to know that it's not because I have any political feelings. Okay.
Okay.
But you know. I don't know. I don't know. Have you asked Sarah Palin to come on?
I wish I could call. I wish I had a phone number. I go, girl, come on.
No, she has not come on.
I called her.
That may be the reason, but I know others who do not, who fear that one or the other with a strong political point of view. So, again, I give him credit for coming on with us.
Can I just say that I think it was rather elitist of Steve Croft to say that it's demeaning to be on The View. The View is a show that appeals to women.
Yes.
And I think it's a little sexist, if I may be so disrespectful and bold, to say that that is demeaning.
No, but he wasn't just talking about us, Joy.
I think he was talking about
a lot of
all of the
programs
shows
that are not the so-called hard news programs like 60 Minutes.
I don't care what show he's talking about. It's elitism to say that he can only be on 60 Minutes or Meet the Press.
Agreed.
We are the electorate. We vote for the man. Jon Stewart's audience is the youth vote. Ours is the female vote.
But, you know, in the
this
past,
is America.
do you remember when Bill Clinton played the saxophone and was criticized? I mean, this has been, there is the, you know, the old news network, and these are the serious programs that you should come on.
But you can't say you're a man of the people if you don't appeal to the people.
Well, yes, but
well,
it's time for
you
that.
have,
Isn't it
you
time for
have to, and I think it's
But what
appropriate
he's saying
to use
is
media
things are
available
changing.
to you. Yes.
And things are changing. We do have cable. Things have changed.
Yeah. There's a lot of young people that didn't vote, and I think for him to go on a show like Jon Stewart or to go on a BET to get those people who don't watch, 60 Minutes or Meet the Press.
Quite honestly, I mean, you know, this is probably the first time that we've ever seen a president actually going and talking to different groups of people. I can't remember any president ever going on BET before. I'll tell you that.
We didn't have it in the past.
No, we've had BET for a long time.
And by the way, 60 Minutes of it.
I actually think it's important for the president to take as many avenues in terms of reaching people as possible. And I think we should be less. Hang on.
George Washington slept here. He slept there. He slept there.
I think we should not be worried so much about where he's going, but what he's saying when he's there.
The other thing is that our show reaches women and men and young people. 60 Minutes traditionally, although it's a very fine program, very high rating.
Over 65.
There's people at least over 50. Yeah. So, you know, it's a different audience.
They vote.
Well, you know what? It's time to grow up, world. We're here and we're not going anywhere.
The Pope is on Facebook. The Pope and the Queen of England are now on Facebook.
Are they your friends?
But they won't do interviews. But they won't do interviews.
But Obama was the one that harnessed the internet as well.
So somebody who might do an interview with us. Keith Olbermann was suspended by MSNBC for contributing to 3 Democratic election campaigns, which is prohibited by NBC News unless an employee is granted a special exception by the news division president. Basically, what I just said was he didn't ask permission because he's considered a news journalist.
Well, let me say 2 things. We made a mistake. We should have had him on the program today.
Well, that's why I said he'll probably
you know what,
come
you're
on.
Right. Okay, but there is, again, we go back to the old news network. And I live with this myself because I'm a member of ABC News. Right. It has traditionally been that people who are journalists do not attend fundraisers for political candidates and do not give money. Years ago, I even remember someone being fired for doing this. Right. Now we have this line, same thing we're talking about, that's blurred. Keith Olbermann goes on. We know that he's a liberal Democrat. We hear him slamming Republicans, and yet he is under the umbrella of NBC News, where people like Brian Williams do not give their opinion. Then we have the Fox News, which gave something like $1 million
they have a different policy, right?
They gave $1 million to the Republican Governors Association, another $1 million to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. So I think they need to have, now that we have cable and people are giving opinions, they need to look at those.
It's interesting though here that
I'm curious because I know this is bad.
We invited Obama, by the way. They're telling me in my ear.
I've never thought of Keith as a journalist. I always thought of him as a commentator because I know him as a sports dude who sort of evolved into doing this thing on his own show.
He would make political comments all the time. A guy would go into the end zone and he'd make some sort of, he'd allude to some politician. But I think it's interesting that they have a mother may I policy over at MSNBC. Where you have to ask their permission before you can donate, and then they grant it, which I think is almost worse than just saying, okay, basically, if you want to donate, you can. Asking first, to me, means that there may be sort of committee deciding on who
Never occurred to me to ask. By the way, he'll be back on his program tomorrow.
So is he a journalist now? I mean, did he get? Well, I thought you had to sort of go through a little bit of stuff to become a journalism person. I thought you had
O'Reilly a journalist?
No.
Yes.
And he says he's not.
I would say they're pundits, aren't they? They give their political opinions.
Remember we had a discussion where a journalist on CNN admitted that he was molested, and everybody said, well, you're a journalist. You shouldn't be, you know. Yeah. So it's like, I think it's so blurred.
You know, it's like shrinks. So that some shrinks say nothing. You do all the talking, and others get involved.
Not the same.
Well, it's It's blurred.
These are
it's
these
not
old
one thing anymore.
These old rules that have to be revised and looked at again. If you're an anchor on a network, you're not allowed to do it. But if you're an anchor on a cable program, you are allowed
I would like to know. I would like to know. I think it should be full disclosure if someone is, under that umbrella, who they are contributing to, and I think it should be, open to the American people. If
donors.
they're giving you an opinion, you should know.
On that too. I don't like anonymous anything, frankly, unless it's a poem.
Literature?
Then I don't care.
I knew it. I knew I could get you with the literature.
But the Fox News, by the way, has 3 potential presidential hopefuls hired as commentators. Mike Huckabee, Sarah Palin, and Newt Gingrich are all working for Fox News, and they all would like to run for president. So that's a sort of over the line.
Is that a conflict
Why is
of
it over
interest?
the line if that's their policy?
Well, because it's free advertising.
If it's free market and you can go there and watch it, then why doesn't someone else adopt that policy? Why doesn't MSNBC have that policy?
Well, they
Don't
should start
pretend to be objective.
They should. That's right. Don't say fair and balanced when you're not fair and balanced.
Well, you know what? We are fair and balanced, and we're deep that way. And you know how deep we are? No, we're definitely unbalanced.
You sure you're balanced?
We're a little unbalanced. I think I'm fairly balanced at least enough to say that we will be back with more hot topics. But before we go, congratulations from all of us to everyone who ran in the New York Marathon yesterday. We'll be back. Mentioned the marathon, and it turns out we have several marathon runners in our audience. Would you all stand up, please? Thank you for coming to us after you ran the marathon.
And soar.
Yeah, and soar. Speaking of which, former President George W. Bush says his pro-life stance was solidified as a teenager after his mother, Barbara Bush, suffered a devastating miscarriage and showed him the fetus she had put in a jar to take to the hospital.
Oh, wow.
Ew.
What can you say about that?
Well, I wonder if...
Does she feel he can handle seeing that?
I don't know how old he was, but what would be the point of that? What is the point of it?
What he said was the point. The reason he says this in the book, this is an interview with my colleague, Matt Lauer, who got the interview and will be showing it on NBC. Congratulations to him. He says that the reason that he talked about this in his book was not because it turned him against abortion, but to show how close he was to his mother. But let me just finish. But then he said when he looked at this fetus, he said, that could be my little brother or my little sister. And so this is why I am pro-life for the rest of my life.
Obviously, it's something traumatic. I think everyone has a reason why they are or are not, and I think it can sometimes even change. I think you can think that you are one and then sort of maybe evolve in your thought or not. I mean, I remember thinking that I was pro-life, and then it wasn't until seeing 3D ultrasound that I became. I mean, I've showed this. That's Isaiah in me. He was smiling all mush and in there, but he has the same smile now. But I remember seeing that on that day, and this is my 3rd child, and thinking, now I know. Like, I really know. And it wasn't the original ultrasounds that did it for me. It was the 3D that really made me think, oh my gosh, like that's.
How old was the fetus at
this
that
was
point?
12. I had one at 12 weeks and 16 weeks, and they were pretty much the same. And I think that was what did it for me. It more than solidified that, just in my own heart. And I don't push that on anybody else. It's just that's my journey.
If you're lucky enough to be in a position to have a child, it's a marvelous thing.
Yeah.
But if you're not in the position of having one, it is. I don't know anyone, and I know people always say, oh, there are people who do it like candy. I don't know anyone who's had an abortion and felt that was what they wanted to do just to sort of get it going. I think that I appreciate how he feels, and I still am questioning why she did it. But that's just me.
But I think, I am one who doesn't believe in the government telling a woman what she should do with her body. But I know even when I was pregnant with Jeffrey, and I would look at the books, and he looked like a little sperm, it still was that thing of I have a life growing inside of me.
You could afford that. You could afford that. You had support. What about these folks who find, you know, maybe they've lost their job, never anticipating that was going to happen, and they're like, you know, they're teetering,
and so they can't support them.
Why is it a hard decision then? Is always what I ask, because I have friends who've been there. I get it. Like,
most women would love to have as many babies as they could have. I believe most women who want to have children would like to do it, but I think sometimes it's just the wrong time, as we've seen with lots of people losing their jobs.
It's a part of the movie that you're in, Colored Girls, when your daughter, isn't it your daughter in the movie?
Yes.
Is pregnant, and it would have ruined her life.
Doesn't this conversation make the case for the morning after pill, where after you have unprotected sex, you can take something that doesn't even get to this point? I mean, that would be the solution.
Why should it be so easy to take a morning after pill?
Listen, my daughter, as you may or may not know, was 14 when she got pregnant. Now, was this a choice that I would have made for her? Probably not. Thank goodness she made a choice. She's got a great daughter right now who I love and adore.
She also had a mother who could help support her.
But that's my point. Yeah. You know, that's my point. It really is. It's about support. You know, in the old days when we were young.
Is there a mourning that comes? Because this is something that I think that, yes, situationally, everyone would agree with that. But I think, is there a sadness and a grieving, and if so, what are you mourning and what are you?
Till later. I'm one that has had several abortions.
Somebody always
did that.
Feels.
I've had a few, but it hit me. It hit me as an adult. The guilt. And the shame and the humiliation of having all of these abortions, and it's been a lot of prayer. But you know, it didn't hit me when I was a teenager.
But this is something we can talk about, and people, you know, we have and we will, and.
But it's I just wonder. I mean, maybe one day Barbara will say out loud why she showed him.
Barbara Bush.
Barbara Bush.
Barbara had no jar of anything.
One of the things. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to link it because one of the other things we were going to talk about. We'll do when we come back from break. But before we go, you know, actress Jill Clayburgh, one of the amazing actresses of our time. She's best known probably for the groundbreaking movie An Unmarried Woman. Lost her battle with leukemia on Friday at 66, and so we will miss her.
She's lived with chronic leukemia for 20 years.
For 20 years. She put up a hell of a fight, and she was a hell of a woman. Hey, look, when we come back, we have even more hot topics because we're just like that. That we are still one of the only places you can have a discussion like we were having this morning. You can't see that anywhere else, even though they say you can.
You can. But not with friends, I think. But not reasonably, not the way we do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's never personal. It's about opinion, and then we talk about, you know, anal scratching. You know, we go from one thing to the other, but that's what people do.
But then I want to talk about your kid instead of anal scratching.
I was just going to ask Sherry to tell us how Jeffrey's getting more observant these days.
It's funny what you tell kids and how you teach them. We were on the subway, and there was an older couple that got on, and it looks like they'd had the baby, you know, later in life. And they're talking to Jeffrey, and he's saying hi, and he says to the woman, he says, "Excuse me, are you a grandma?" And I could have fell through the tracks when he said that, but it did. And I said, no, Jeffrey, you know, in a teachable moment, no, Jeffrey, she's a mommy. Jeffrey looked at me like, no, you a mommy. That's a grandma.
Yeah, but he should see all of these much older fathers that we're seeing these days, and mothers with their children.
You have to carry what's called...
It's like a child saying, why is somebody so fat, or why is she dressed
funny? But they ask that, too. Yeah, are you pregnant? I don't know how many times I've been asked that.
That's why you carry the be quiet snack. When you're just like, that's interesting, and you just like lolly.
And just shove it in their mouth?
Yes.
Just chloroform also works. Right over the mouth.
I'll let you know how that works.
Speaking of babies saying interesting things, last week Bristol Palin admitted that she was so busy with Dancing in the Stars she did not mail her absentee ballot to Alaska. And Meghan McCain isn't happy about it, saying women worked hard for the right to vote, and you know, I guess it's only important that for Bristol to vote for Dancing with the Stars.
Well, doesn't she have an absentee ballot where she can?
She didn't get it in. She didn't get it in.
Look, we've all been in positions, I'm sure, where it wasn't easy to do. I remember being on Survivor and not being as plugged into politics as I was.
Running for vice president?
No, but I just wasn't. No, agreed. And look, she's a little bit closer to it. Fine.
It's going to fall on Bristol a little bit more than the regular
It will. But as a person, if we can just extract her from the situation and treat her like a young woman, okay? She's obviously had a lot going on. I've been there. I vow never to miss an election again. I think she'll learn her lesson and she'll be more actively involved herself, not just by default because her mom's running.
Well, is her mother running?
She's not just a young... The point about it is she's not just a young girl. She's also a spokesperson for abstinence. She's the daughter of a vice presidential candidate.
But how many presidential people...
Like, you know, Nancy,
Joy, how many children...
down the block.
How many children of presidential candidates have fallen and shown that they're imperfect? How many have been drinking and they got caught? I'm not saying she shouldn't have voted. I would think that probably her family would have been on her too.
I agree with that, but you know, I don't have to let her off the hook so easily, and neither does Meghan McCain. That's all.
She will more than us recognizing her mistake is her recognizing it.
I don't know. I mean, I dropped the ball on many things also, and I'm a grown woman. You know, and she's got a full-time job, and if she dropped the ball on this, you know, she's got another couple of years to do this. Well, but you know what? She may not be in the midst of trying to sort of do this show and be a mom and do all the stuff she's doing. I mean, if you cut her a little tiny
making mistakes, isn't it? She keeps making.
No. What's her first mistake?
Well, getting pregnant out of wedlock.
Why is that a mistake, Joy? You're calling her child a mistake?
Well,
what if this turns out to be the best child?
It's not a mistake, but even Bristol herself has.
She's preaching abstinence then, if it wasn't a mistake.
So it's more of a mistake for her to have the kid than not. Tell me.
No, I didn't say that. Wait, don't put words in my mouth.
Just check me. I've just got to see where you're coming.
Hold on.
I think it's unfortunate to say that she made a mistake.
We're going, and when we come back, we are coming back with Natalie Cole.
Emotional new book, Love Brought Me Back. She shares how her past came back to haunt her in the most unexpected way and how she won the battle to save her life at the same time that she lost one of the most important people in it. Please welcome back Natalie Cole.
My girl,
welcome back.
We're so glad to be there. You could not walk out.
You couldn't walk out.
Way.
Right. Well, I must discuss these shoes. Look at those shoes.
Jimmy shoes.
No, really, walking out in those shoes is what the point is, because you
couldn't walk.
It's incredible to see you today like this.
That's right.
But you know, in the book, you talk about your 2-year battle with this life-threatening illness. This started in 2008. You were diagnosed with hepatitis C. Now, how did they detect this virus, and how did you get it in the first place, Natalie?
Well, I actually went for elective surgery. I had a little hernia situation, and I had to take, blood. You do your lab work and stuff like that. Right. So the doctor called me because I was in the studio recording, and he said, I need you to go see a nephrologist, kidney guy.
Yeah.
So I go see the kidney guy, and he goes, I need you to go see a liver guy. I go see the liver guy, and he says, you have hep C. And I'm like, what?
But Natalie, didn't you write in the book that it came from your previous, great part, it came from your previous use of heroin?
It's a virus that lived in my body for 25 years.
That was destroying your kidney, that it came from your drug use, which was very open and honest of you.
Yes,
But
that's correct.
Yeah.
And then when they put me on interferon, which is a form of chemo, it compromised my kidneys even further. And I went into kidney failure the day after I was on this show.
Yeah. You were laying in the hospital.
Is that why you couldn't walk out here that day?
Yes.
Remember, she was in a wheelchair
I was
in the back.
process of going into kidney failure.
Can you explain exactly, I'm sorry, what hepatitis C is, since you just talked about having it? What is it exactly?
Well, it's a condition that affects the liver. You can get it several ways. Through tattoos, through sharing of needles, if you're in a drug situation.
Again, the tattoos are from a needle, too.
Yes. Yeah. Blood transfusions. You can get it from a partner, sexual partner. And I have also known another gentleman who also was diagnosed with Hep C, and he's like also in his late 50s, early 60s, and he was doing drugs years ago. And this virus can live in your body for a long time.
How long were you addicted to heroin?
Probably about 2 or 3 years. I know it sounds like, oh, it's only 2 or 3 years, but even that short period of time.
But it affects the rest of your life. I mean,
I was doing needles.
And I'm going back because it was 2008 when you were here. You leave. You almost go to the hospital. Nearly almost die.
Yeah.
And then, but we see you here today. I mean, resilient as ever. How are you feeling today?
Well, after what I've been through, you'd be resilient too, honey.
You are.
We should talk about what you went through, because you had a kidney transplant.
I did.
At the same time that your beloved sister,
Cookie,
was dying.
Yeah. It was so odd.
In the same hospital.
And that's why I really felt the need to write the book, even though it was really, really tough for me to do it. But the way in which all of these things happened to come together in such an amazing way. And I would say there's some grief and there's some gratitude still.
But tell us about the transplant.
Cookie did not tell us that she was not feeling well. She ended up having lung cancer, which I did not know. The whole time I was on dialysis, she was my cheerleader and everything. When she got sick, I was coming off of a trip, and the last time I saw her alive was Mother's Day. She then went into a coma about another week later, and I was with her at the hospital, and then I got a call from the other hospital that a kidney was available. And I said, oh, I can't talk to you right now. I'm with my sister, And they called back a couple hours later, and they said, please come. This kidney is a perfect match. So I had to make a decision, and I kissed her goodbye. I know that she would be saying to me, girl, you better go get that kidney.
Run and get it.
And so they didn't tell me that she passed until after my transplant, which was the next day. 64.
So the family of the donor of your kidney, what can you tell us about them?
They're just the best. You just never know where your help is going to come from, you know. And this was a family. They're all organ donors, by the way. Jessica, who is the young woman whose kidney I have, was early 30s, pregnant. 8 months and she went into labor. She had a stroke. And that's when they realized she was an organ donor. And she passed along her kidney to me. And the way I got it is because I was in the hospital for a particular procedure one day in Los Angeles. I had a nurse for 5 or 6 hours. She was the aunt of Jessica. They were watching Larry King several weeks later when I did it a year ago. And I was talking about I was needing a transplant, but I wasn't worried about it because I was feeling okay. And they were watching the show, and they said, gee, we wish we could help her. And Jessica's sitting there saying, yeah, she seems like such a nice lady, not knowing that she was going to lose her life a couple of weeks later.
Wow.
And I would get her kidney.
Was the baby... You said
the baby is fine.
The baby
His name is Lucas.
The baby is fine.
May 19th. That's our date.
Let me ask you about your son, Robbie. Is he about 30 now?
Yes.
Yes. How was he when you were going through all of this?
He looks like Cookie.
You know, he's such a doll. My son has a resilience that is amazing. He couldn't do enough, and yet I know he was terrified. Absolutely terrified. He would just do this all the time. You know, but...
You've also reconciled with your mother.
Yes.
Because you had a hard time.
Yeah, we went through some rough waters.
To your father.
We went through some rough waters, yeah.
It was hard to grow up. Nat King Cole was a fantastic, great star.
Yes,
very famous, and you were a kid. It must have been difficult.
Yeah, it was tough. It was tough on all of us. It was tough on my mom when we lost him. I mean, he was such the glue of our family. He really, really was. But my mom, you know, she's been a great supporter.
Are you going to perform?
She was right there when I came out after my transplant. And, oh, yeah.
Perform where?
No, I don't mean here today, but I mean now you're well enough and you're traveling and performing. And,
I'm back working like crazy. I just came off of 3 weeks in Asia.
Your CD on, I thought.
No, not yet. But there's a song called Love Brought Me Back as well. And you can get it on the internet.
You want to do one line?
I wish I could. It just says, love brought me back.
Yes. You know what, Natalie? We are so glad you're back. Your entire spirit is so beautiful. Thank you to Natalie Cole. And we thank Natalie Cole for coming back. Members of our studio audience are going home with a copy of Love Brought Me Back. We'll be right back.
I just want to say I couldn't be happier. You were the only choice. You were the perfect choice. You have been an absolute gentleman in private and in the press. I agree. Conan rocks. Good luck next week, my friend.
Jay, thank you for everything.
All the best.
Conan O'Brien,
That's an old clip. That was probably the last civil exchange between Jay Leno and Conan O'Brien before the battle for The Tonight Show. And now the man who exposed the first war between Leno and David Letterman, that was back in the 90s, is back with a new book, The War for Late Night, Why Leno Went Early and Chief Television, no, and I got to read it right. The War for Late Night, Why Leno Went Early and Television Went Crazy. Okay, I'm talking about the chief television reporter for the New York Times, our friend Bill Carter. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's be good, everybody.
So before we get to that, we were talking, all of us, about Keith Olbermann.
Right.
Do you think that the rules of the news department have to be changed now that we have all this cable?
Well, I think they have to decide what they want to be. But I think one of the most interesting things about the Olbermann situation, which isn't getting enough, maybe, emphasis, is they made him an anchor on election night.
That's right.
They didn't just have him do commentary. So they put him into the news position, which is what they do. So they're making him cross over. So he's doing both jobs, and I think people don't realize that puts him in a different category.
So he's not the equivalent of a Bill O'Reilly.
No,
or
and, and then Fox.
Right.
One thing Fox sort of does scrupulously is not let Hannity and O'Reilly anchor, so they can put them in a separate category.
So they're right about that. They got to decide
So
what
maybe
they're
that's
gonna
the
do.
way they should go.
If you're going to make, I think you have to decide what you're going to be, sort of. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go through this. So The Tonight Show with Jay Leno had been the #1 show in late night for years, but they wanted to keep the young crowd, so they promised Conan O'Brien, in 5 years, you'll have Jay Leno. 5 years came. They said to Leno, you're out, and they gave the job to Conan. He didn't do well. It was such a mess.
Yeah.
So is that the way it should have? What should they have done?
Well, this is maybe a comedy of errors, because you start with a 5-year. Who gives somebody a 5-year anything in television, really? And you don't know what's going to happen in 5 minutes.
Why do that then?
Because they were going to lose Conan to another network, and they thought they could keep him, and Conan really wanted The Tonight Show. But you have Leno for the first time in history. I don't know if this ever happened where they said, you're #1, but you'll be out.
Go. Yeah.
But that doesn't happen.
It's a long time to be like lame
so they
duck.
wanted to keep Conan, and they decided to do this. Obviously, it broke Jay's heart to begin with. So then they said, we're all for Conan. But then as the time came up, their confidence in Conan started to flag, and they said, well, Jay, go into prime time. We'll move Jay ahead of you. And that really was a mistake,
When they
because
put him at 10 o'clock at night,
they put him at 10
disaster.
o'clock at night. Not a good idea for them or him, really, because it's very difficult to do a comedy show 5 nights a week in prime time. So now we have 2 guys not succeeding, and I think the real fundamental problem was make a decision, make a call. Who do you want?
What would you have done?
Which guy? I would have made a choice. I mean, if their choice is 5 years earlier, well, Jay's #1, you have to let Conan go. 5 years later, if you want Conan, then you have to let Jay go.
Right.
But you have to make a call. You can't say...
You can't have your cake and eat it,
I
too.
keep saying it's a math problem. 2 doesn't go into 1. There's 1 chair on The Tonight Show. You can't put the 2 butts in 1 chair.
So then when they decided, let's flip and put Conan back to his successful time slot, he didn't want to do that.
Well, they were going to actually move him, instead of all the way back to 12:30, they were going to move him a half hour and have Jay do a half-hour show, which, again, nothing like that had ever been done before. And Conan, look, you have to say one thing. He did walk away from a show he really wanted and dreamed about on principle, and it was risky, and who knows if it's going to work out for his career. But you have to admire at least he had the curve of his convictions.
Well, he did get a $40 million payoff.
Yes.
It's not that risky.
Helps.
Yeah.
And
that helps.
His new show, by the way, starts tonight on cable.
Yes.
But, you know, in this, Jay kind of came out the villain, you know, as if he was...
As if he plotted the whole thing, right?
But in your book, you are much more sympathetic to him, and you feel that he was falsely accused.
I'm just trying to tell the story as I knew it and heard it. I mean, I'm not sympathetic or not sympathetic to either guy. I'm trying to say what I think is the truth.
Yeah.
I don't think you can say that Jay Leno deliberately put himself into prime time where he would fail and be embarrassed. I mean, that makes no sense.
Right.
So he did something that he thought would work for him, that he would keep at the network he wanted to be. He wasn't planning to go back to the Tonight Show.
You also talk about, you said that Conan was really torn up about taking that spot at 12:05.
Yes.
And that the discussions between he and NBC, it got heated, it got vicious.
Yes, it did.
I mean, wow.
Yeah.
How vicious did it get?
Well, I mean, the head of NBC, Jeff Zucker, called his agent and really had a very nasty conversation with him, saying,
You said it got ruthless.
It got pretty ruthless, yeah. And
It hasn't helped Jeff Zucker's career.
no, well, yes, well, he was under unbelievable pressure too, because there was a new owner taking over NBC. There's a whole lot of factors.
Didn't he make the decision in the first place?
He did. He made all the moves. He was responsible.
Yeah.
No question.
But it's interesting now that the hero of late night is Jon Stewart.
Well, that's another interesting thing, and it's certainly going to be fascinating to see what happens, because Conan is going against Jon Stewart, really. He's on cable. He's starting at 11 o'clock, not 11:30, so he's going head-to-head with Jon Stewart,
What
who
does
is
he have to do?
red hot.
To
I think
succeed in
Conan
that
has to be
position, then?
himself. He's got to be himself. You know, when he was on The Tonight Show, I think he was trying to do a little bit something he wasn't fully comfortable with, which is, you know, be a little broader, be a little less funky the way he was. Yeah. And I think, you know, you guys know, if you're doing comedy, you better be yourself, right? That's what you have to do.
Yeah.
And I
So
think
now, did they
he
move,
will now. I think he will.
Are they moving George Lopez's show
back? They're
to...
moving George Lopez's show back to
How does he feel about that?
Well, before this happened, they went to him and asked him, and I think he was comfortable with it, because it's better for him to be on than to be canceled. I think he might have been canceled otherwise.
Well, that's how Jay
Let me ask you, what about
probably
women at late night? What do you think about women in
Well, you
success
have
at late
one
night?
woman now, Chelsea Handler, does a late night
great.
show, and she does very well.
I actually love her.
What about the fact that a news program, Nightline, is beating all of them?
Well, that's great for Nightline,
late night
because there's so many entertainers, comedy guys doing the show.
If you wanted something else,
they're zagging when
that's
everybody's
something
zigging. It really is an advantage to
I
them.
have a question for you, because when all of this stuff was happening, Jay wanted to call Conan.
Yep.
You know, and he was advised by some bonehead not to make the call.
The reason for that was that when they first told Conan that they were going to move him, Conan reacted and said, you know, what does this guy Leno have on you? What has he got on you guys? And he was very angry, and they thought this is going to be a bad conversation. So
let me ask you, why didn't Conan know that this was not Jay's choice?
Well, I think, look, it was emotional for him. I think all along the line, I think he was feeling like Conan, he was always behind Jay. Right. No matter what he did, they moved Jay to primetime to get ahead of him.
I'm so sorry. We're live television, and we just have to stop at this point. I'm sorry, Whoopi, but they're giving me cues that we must stop. So we have to thank Bill Carter, and we have to tell you that his book, which is as juicy as can be, The War for Late Night, you'll see it here. Everybody will get a copy of it, and it's going to be in bookstores when?
Today.
Today.
The movie Dryland just came out on DVD. You're all getting it. Take a little time to enjoy the view.